Alright, this is just a week one, short, handful of minutes wrap up of week one in the NFL for the 2015 season. Starting off in more or less chronological order. We have the Thursday night game, the Steelers and the Patriots. Patriots kind of jumped on them early, winning the game 28-21, but of course the Steelers were rallied, which was a little too late. There's headset issues, so again, more fodder for the press to talk about Tom Brady and the Patriots cheating ways, which at this point, I don't know who can't subscribe to it. So there's nothing to keep an eye on starting week one after all this drama in the offseason. I'm still not ready to call Antonio Brown the best receiver in the league yet. Other people who are, experts, former players, Hall of Famers, they can have their opinion, but to me, there's 2 or 3 guys above him, even at this point, with everything he's proved. You got the Colts and Bills. Again, a game that some people thought the Colts were going to win close, or, the offense was just too good and too new with, veterans like Frank Gore and Andre Johnson. But that can't fix your team. It's just supplement things that, you're already doing well. They don't have much of a run game, and the offensive line is just too iffy to me. So I'm not surprised that they fell 14-27. Andrew Luck is still very young. He's still been playing a handful of years. So that, along with, dealing with, inexperienced head coach and Chuck Pagano, I'm not too surprised. Rex Ryan, the Bills were hyped. The stadium was hyped, apparently too hyped in the stands. The Bills fans are already making a name for themselves, triple X wise. Then again, I'm not surprised there. I was telling people not even to play Andrew Luck. If they had someone like Cam Newton, even if he rushes, maybe gets touchdown passes, gets a touchdown, keeps his interceptions low, his turnovers low, he'd probably be more or less the same as Andrew Luck, perhaps even better against a weaker Jaguars defense, in comparison to the Bills. Then you have the Jets just blowing out the Browns. Again, that's what you get when you start Manziel and see at least what he can try, at least get some continuity there. Just yet, not getting the start in favor of Josh McCown. The Jets took down the Browns 31-10. The Jets defense is good as almost as good as it was in 2009. They're only going to get better during the season. Then you got those Panthers taking down the Jaguars 20-9 in Jacksonville. Not much surprise there, even with the midway loss of Luke Kuechly. Their defense is just too good and too young and too strong for the Jaguars to handle at this point with all the second-year players and things like that, and the lack of talent in general the Jaguars have. You also have the Packers getting a little bit of a fight from the Bears. I guess division games, they can go over, under, they could be blowouts, close. Those are in a different category altogether. They took down the Bears 31-23. Not missing Jordy Nelson just yet. The Chiefs beat the Texans 27-20. Had a bit of a struggle with the Texans. I guess they are improving, but they're still possessive of that big question mark at quarterback. I don't know if Tom Savage is going to be that guy going forward or not. Then you got the Dolphins had a scare with the Redskins. They won 17-10 in Washington, D.C. Not much to say there other than the Redskins surprised me a little bit, but then again, 10 points only against a team that's not quite yet. The 2000 Ravens or 85 Bears, or even the 2002 Buccaneers. Not much of a surprise. The end, I would like the Dolphins to have put a little bit more points up with the help of their defense, even to put them in better field position. But people are saying Joe Philbin is on the hot seat, so maybe it's their scheming isn't helping them. And but it's only week one, so their new acquisitions like Sue and all that, it's going to take some time to gel with the rest of the defense. Then you got the Rams upsetting the Seahawks. I don't think it's much of an upset. I'm not saying I'm picking the Rams for a Super Bowl run this year. They just got Nick Foles, but they've had a great defense. All those first rounders on the defensive line is always, talked about. When you look at it, they don't have bad players everywhere else. I mean, they have Joe Laurinaitis, Alec Ogletree, Janoris Jenkins has been okay. Cortland Finnegan, I think, is out the door. They picked up Mark Barron, if I'm not mistaken, from the Buccaneers last year. They took that from the Seahawks 34-31. Again, at home in overtime without Cam Chancellor, so it's not much of an upset to me, even with Cam Chancellor. But apparently with Deion Bailey being that kind of decisive play towards the end there, looks like they would have possibly benefited greatly and to get the complexion of the game would look very different in comparison. Then you also have the Chargers, who beat the Lions. Both teams are decent, so I'm not really surprised they beat the Lions 33-28, giving up that many points. You also have the Cardinals, who beat the Saints 31-19. No surprise at all. The Cardinals are still in early season form with Carson Palmer and all, so not surprised there with the defense they have and the lack of Jimmy Graham and Darren Sproles and all those players like Lance Moore in their prime that Drew Brees is accustomed to having, but no longer does have, as well as the defensive players they've lost over the years since their Super Bowl run in 2009. You also have the Broncos, who had a back-and-forth defensive battle, which was one of the better games. I do appreciate defensive games myself. They beat the Ravens. The Broncos over the Ravens. Score was 19-13 in Denver. So Denver looks like at least the defense could bail them out this year, week 1 when they're all healthy. So we'll see how the season pans out going forward as the season drags on. You also have the Raiders falling to the Bengals. The Bengals won that 33-13 in Oakland, losing Derek Carr midway. I'm not saying he was going to win the game for them still, but he gives them their best chance to win. He's the one player. He's easily the most valuable player, even in his second year. With all the losses they had last year, he's easily the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks since he was there. In the draft last year, I liked him better than Bortles. I even liked him more or less. Him and Aaron Murray were kind of tied. Of course, I did like Johnny Manziel the most. Then you got the Titans and the Buccaneers. Kind of surprised me how efficient out the gate Mariota was. 42-14 with those quick releases and low attempts but very high completion. I think it was like almost like 100%. He only threw like 18 or 19 passes. So they just, I think they just jumped on the Bucs and kind of overwhelmed them in the beginning. But they scored a couple touchdowns. They won that against the Buccaneers 42-14 against Jameis Winston, who didn't look so great, but he's overrated. He's good, but he's not like, he's not the next coming of Donovan McNabb even. I don't know if he's going to be even as accomplished as Donovan McNabb. That means he has to get to the Super Bowl and get close to beating a good team like the Patriots. Not some young, unexperienced, had a good run that year team, but a dynasty team that once they beat the Eagles and then went 3-4, they became a dynasty. So I don't know if Jameis Winston's going to be able to do all that. Even with all the offensive talent around him, they need a lot of help on defense too. Then we have the Cowboys squeaking by the Giants 27-26. Not much of a surprise there. It is a divisional game. It was in Jerry World in Dallas. Watching the game, it just felt like the Giants weren't able to really get going. They had spurts. They had a touchdown or two, and they moved the ball a little bit. But then they looked, like a week 1 team sometimes. Either, you overwhelm a team or you're the team that's overwhelmed. Sometimes you're just so excited to play. You forget about certain fundamental things and certain things that you've been practicing all offseason for. You have certain lapses during the game, and one lapse could lead to a turnover, could lead to a penalty. Then they'll stack up, and you're not going to win too many of those games, especially on the road. Then there was the Monday night game. After that Sunday night one with the Cowboys and Giants, there was the Falcons. As a Falcons fan, of course, with them beating the Eagles 26-24. I'm not surprised. They dumped them early, let up a little bit, jumped on them later, then let them score some points and just throw the ball, prevent defense or something. They didn't have much of a pass rush. They barely hit, got a hand on Sam Bradford. They stopped the running game, but it looks like DeMarco Murray and them are not that good this year. This early, maybe later in the year, they start to really gel with the run blocking and scheming and hitting the hole a lot quicker like he was doing in Dallas with that great offensive line there. But then they pulled it out at the end. I'm not surprised I picked the Falcons to win it. I thought the Falcons were going to blow them out, but then again, I should have seen that they were going to get a lead early, so forcing the other team to pass, which is the Falcons' weakness, because even though the run defense is the more important thing, I think, in football, so you can shut down play action as well, so you shut down 2 phases of the game, running and passing off the run. They're forced to straight pass and become much more predictable. But when they were more predictable at the end of the game, the Falcons were just laying up a lot of yards and a couple of touchdowns late, putting the Falcon fans as usual through the usual late game scares. And on to the second Monday night game, final game of week 1 of the 2015 NFL season. You had the 49ers coming out pretty strong with the defense. I didn't know if they were going to be that back to their old ways, but of course they did get guys like Navarro Bowman back, and they still had some continuity with a head coach and Tom Sula, who had been there for many years, I think even before Harbaugh. So not too surprised there. I'm just surprised that the Vikings didn't stick with the run as much as they didn't. They scored only 3 points I know Teddy Bridgewater is good, and he's made me a bit of a believer. The jury's still out with me, but with the lack of weapons he has, losing Greg Jennings now, and you got guys like Charles Johnson and Cordero Patterson, he's more of a really good return guy. We'll see if he can ever develop into a receiver. Unlike guys like Devin Hester or Dante Hall, we're never really able to do. So I love that. I think Cordero Patterson is going to need to be with what they have on that roster. Of course, with their tight end retiring and all that. But I thought Peterson was going to come out a little bit more hungry. Maybe he's going to, say, give me the ball. But maybe he did do that. And maybe the coach, Mike Zimmer still said no. We're going to, call the plays and you guys run them as we call them. That being said, that was week 1 in the NFL. Look forward to the coming weeks and see if I give maybe this week in the NFL like an A-, just because of some of the funny stories. Some of them gruesome. A lot of fans fighting. It makes me think that this next civil war we have in the United States or in the world in general is going to come over sports. In the United States case, the NFL, or even college football altogether. Aside from all that joking though, it was a good week. Feel free to comment, like, dislike. Let me know anything that you'd like or didn't like, and that you'd like to see more of. If you have any questions. If I speak a little bit too much on the surface of things, it's because I expect you guys to at least be watching the NFL, for at least a few years. If you don't see yourself being too familiar with it, of course, just pick up yourself a copy, a magazine or a video game or something, and then familiarize yourself with the players and what's been going on the last few years. The internet is free, so once you get on it, you're good to go. And again, this has been the first week in the 2015 NFL season, and I'll see you after week 2.